Hello and welcome to another Looney Tunes review video. If you are new to the channel, make sure you subscribe to follow my journey to review all 1000 classic Looney Tunes shorts and give this video a like as well. So this is a review for Broomstick Bunny, and with me today I have a couple of witches with me, my good friends Eli Copperman and Luke Perkins. Say hi guys.
Trick or treat, Granny. Happy Halloween, everyone. It's good to be back in these commentaries, especially for a very special Halloween-themed Looney Tunes short, Broomstick Bunny, which I got a funny story to tell about this, but I'll let y'all get your introductions out of the way.
And funnily enough, and this is by pure accident that this short happens to fall roughly on Halloween, hence why I'm releasing it on Halloween 2025. Just a few bits of info to get underway. So as mentioned, this is a review for Broomstick Bunny, released on the 25th of Feb 1956. It's the 763rd in the series, and it's directed by, who else? Chuck Jones, of course. You can find the short on the Looney Tunes Golden Collection Volume 2 DVD set and on the Looney Tunes Platinum Collection Volume 1 Blu-ray or DVD set. I have links below to both those sets. You won't find it on YouTube unless Warner Brothers themselves choose to upload it, and maybe they will on their channel for Halloween. They've done stuff like that before, so why wouldn't they? I don't know. You'll have to find out, right? But in case you haven't seen this one, I know a lot of people have seen this, but I gotta mention it anyway. So you've got Witch Hazel. She's making some kind of witch's brew, and she's curious who's the ugliest of them all. And we see Bugs Bunny. He's trick-or-treating, which to him is quite a racket, right?
Yeah.
Because it is.
Pity it only comes once a year.
He's wearing this really ugly mask, and the mirror now says, no, that creature over there is more ugly than you. So she tries to beautify him, and she then realizes, oh, it's a rabbit, and she needs a rabbit, and all kinds of stuff happens after that. So again, everyone's seeing this. So that's why I've gone through it fairly quickly in the synopsis. But there's quite a bit of trivia for this one. Now, if you guys weren't happy with the name Broomstick Bunny, there is a production letter out there that actually gave a few alternate titles that they were thinking of, and you guys let me know in the comments if you think any of these would have been good, okay? So, I'm Witch You, Hair Witch You, Witch's Hair, Heroine, Hobgoblin Hair, and this one's a weird one. Which hair has the Tony? I'm assuming I'm supposed to say tonic.
I'm not gonna lie, most of those just, they don't cut it.
When you said which hair was the Tony, I genuinely thought you were talking about, like, the Tony Awards. And I'm like, wait, what? They know about the Tonys.
I think that was a mistype. I think it was supposed to say tonic at the end. But yeah, that production letter is a pretty interesting bit of history there. Those sorts of things haven't been thrown away and they've been saved. And we can see just some of the behind the scenes stuff in relation to the production of some of these ones. So yeah, it's good to see some alternate titles, even though most of them are, yes, they're terrible. But that's what brainstorming is all about. You gotta get the bad ideas out of the way first, don't you?
Yeah.
True.
And then my good friend S.C. MacPeter, he sent me a recording because he wanted to mention a few things about this document and give a few thoughts on the short itself. So take it away, S.C.
Hello everyone, this is SC giving some brief notes on Broomstick Bunny, directed by Chuck Jones, written by Ted Pierce, and designed by Ernie Nordli. This cartoon was in production by June 1954, and its tentative title was I'm Witch You, or Which Hair You, which is Hair, Heroine, Hobgoblin Hair, and Which Hair Has the Tony. Ultimately, the title would be Broomstick Bunny, which I think works best. This here shows that even in a very loosely written cartoon, there was still lots of tight editing. You may notice if you pay attention to the finer details of this cartoon that Ted Pierce has written a very loose, jointed narrative. We have the witch trying to concoct her potions, then we go into Bugs Bunny trick-or-treating, then we go into her suddenly deciding that she needs to get all of her ugly secrets out of Bugs, who she believes is, of course, a real witch, along with this magic mirror character. Then we have this tea party, and then we have a wild and inane chase around the house after she realizes that it's indeed a rabbit. And then we go into tying everything together at the end. But it looks like originally in Ted Pierce's story, he wanted to show Bugs set up for trick-or-treating. And I'm very glad that they cut this footage. It wouldn't have really added anything to the picture other than just setting up. And the cartoon is pretty long as is, it's 7 minutes, so I think this was for the better. Suggested, keep story as is, but as soon as Witch realizes she needs rabbit clavicle, flash to Bugs Bunny in his home, play up the music scene first, and then let Hazel go into her now for my Halloween brew routine. I think removing some of the Halloween and trick-or-treating spirit helped to cut down on the picture, but I don't blame Ted Pierce for writing this in the first place. After all, it is a director's job to do the editing. Another thing that is in Chuck Jones's favor here is, in storyboard dialogue, change Rabbit's, quote, foot to cavally. Of course, that's him playing with his word and English, which makes sense for Bugs and more importantly, Chuck Jones's direction. This cartoon is really tied together through all of this loose-jointed nature for the well-acted June Foray, which you'll hear people talk about more, so I won't go into it here, but at the end of the cartoon, we see Witch Hazel, as she is correctly called on this jam session paper, turn into June Foray, and the Genie in her mirror seems to be a light caricature of writer Ted Pierce as well, who, of course, as you hear in Chuck's bios, was a womanizer, so that makes perfect sense, and I'm sure it helped entice June to do the performance, seeing that she became a cartoon character. That's always very nice. And just to go a little bit more onto this piece, because I've always found this fascinating, is just again how it's edited. This cartoon almost feels like sort of a Lance cartoon in how it's very loosely jointed, and it's just a lot of different gags with a loose theme. But here is still very tightly edited, more than any Lance cartoon is for the most part. But we see a lot of great suggestions by Jones, who had the favor of having more time to work on his cartoons as well as having a very strong creative mind. Even in a cartoon like this, he's putting in new environments. Witch Hazel isn't a terribly overused character, and there's new design, new poses, new ideas, new story. So you always have to give Jones that favor that he was always trying to put something new in, regardless if it was with recurring characters or not, like Bugs. So you always have to admire that about him, and here Ernie Nordli delivers something similar to Baby Bugsy Bunny in a way. Very flat, very strong use of color. Really some of his best work at the studio, I have to say. It's really, really good. And another thing I noticed was there's a very sharp cut at the end during that scene where Witch Hazel is asking if she is the ugliest one of all after she's been turned into June Foray. It's very quickly cut, no in-betweens to the Genie changing his expression, and I can just feel that Chuck may have cut frames there. I think it was animated to go into it, but I think Jones cutting it was for the best, and it's sort of in that Tex Avery mold in that case where he was cutting frames to get into the comedy. But just going back into Jones's editing rather than talk about it, he mentions either change October 31st date on calendar or preferably omit entirely. Really not necessary, whole theme is obvious. So clearly at one point Ted Pierce had in the storyboard to show that it was Halloween, and Jones said, no, you don't really need to do that. Maybe in other countries that would work better, but in America, no, this was when Halloween was becoming very popular from Irish folklore that had started the holiday. And it looks like at one point she was just going to hack down on Bugs Bunny just because she thought that he was an uglier witch. Which sort of highlights one problem that Jones had during this period where the characters became too stupid. You can see this in cartoons like To Hair is Human with Bugs and Wile E. Coyote, the Porky and Sylvester Jumpin' Jupiter, where Porky's a little too dumb compared to the other two. Really a far cry from some of the more smarter elements that Mike Maltese would have, which shows what he was missing during this period, but thankfully we're almost through that. Mike Maltese comes back 2 months later after this was being written in August of 1954 from being a salaryman at Lance. That's for the better, but I think I've gone on long enough. This is almost as inane or all over the place as Broomstick Bunny admittedly gets, even though, again, it's tied together by a voice. In that case, June Foray, and in this case, mine. That's all, folks. See you next time.
One very important bit of trivia, though, is the voice of Witch Hazel. Now, in the first Witch Hazel appearance, that is actually not June Foray.
Come, kiddies, let's go eat the goodies, the goodies, the goodies. Let's go eat the goodies, la-ta-ta-ta-ta.
That is actually Bea Benaderet, and she also did the voice of Granny, but Bea Benaderet was becoming incredibly popular, and she was having less time to actually do these animated shorts, so June Foray essentially picked up the baton at this point, and she now does the voice of Granny, and she was asked to do Witch Hazel for this short, and she already did a Witch Hazel short over at Disney. Trick or Treat, a nice little Donald Duck short. That's a nice little Halloween staple.
Oh, that's a cute
I love
Halloween
that one,
classic.
too.
I gotta watch that again.
Yeah, it's a nice one.
Oh, bless their little black hearts. I saw the whole thing, kids. Down, Beelzebub, down, please. Thank you. Oh, yeah. A rare ranch.
And from what I understand, Chuck Jones heard her voice there and actually wanted her originally, but they couldn't make it happen at first. But now she accepted and she did it. If you want to hear the whole story regarding her actually getting the job, she does an audio commentary on one of those sets I mentioned earlier. She's obviously passed now, but back then she was very much still active in the voice acting industry, and she goes through the whole story, and it's a nice little track. It's good to hear from her.
Yeah,
she's
her and
definitely
Chuck
missed.
Jones went all the way back to kind of around this time time period. And later on down the road, she would become a mainstay voice actor for Chuck, especially in his MGM cartoons. But seeing her voice Witch Hazel for the very first time, you immediately hear the character. I love B. Benaderet, and I love her take on Witch Hazel, but obviously they're two completely different takes. I actually think Beat sounds a little less witchy and more like motherly, if that makes sense, whereas June's voice sounds very much like an old school witch, and it just fits so well.
I like that they're two different takes. They're fantastic.
I really like both of them. They're both really good. It's essentially the same character with two different vocal deliveries. But they're honestly both very good. I like them. And June Foray's Witch Hazel is iconic, of course.
And even later on, we will discuss the ending in more detail, but you see that she does get beautified at the end, and June Foray herself mentions that that's how she used to dress and have her hair and all that, and she sees that Jones pretty much just did a caricature of her at the time.
Caricatures of voice actors in cartoons? Man, that must have been a rarity back in the day.
Now, my good friend Kamden Spies, who is someone who actually did meet June Foray, he has a few things to say about her and just about the whole Witch Hazel thing. So, take it away, Kamden.
The name Witch Hazel seems to be the quintessential name for any cartoon witch. Every witch seems to have this name, and they all seem to have the same voice. June Foray. Several years before this cartoon, Disney Studios made a film called Trick or Treat, which I'm sure Anthony discussed in this cartoon, and June Foray plays Witch Hazel. And the cartoon was so popular that even Carl Barks adapted it into a comic book story by Dell. I got to talk to Miss Foray for over 2 hours thanks to my friendship with Chuck Jones's grandson, Craig. June loved Chuck dearly, and he was one of June's closest friends in the animation field. Chuck Jones was also responsible for June getting her star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. And as Anthony likely talked about in this film, the model at the end is a model of June Foray, and June never knew this until she saw it, according to what she said later in interviews. My phone conversation with Craig and June was meant to be only about 20 minutes, but it lasted about 2 hours, and it led me to get copies of her signed autobiography, signed photos, and other artifacts. As important as an artist like Mel Blanc is, I would argue June is the single most important voice person in the history of animation because of her contribution to the industry outside of voice acting. This obviously does not include animators and artists who were also voice actors or who did voices, Walt Disney, Bill Scott. But June Foray helped found the Annie Awards, helped create the Oscar Award for animation, with an activist for women in animation. Obviously, her role in Asifa Hollywood is why we have the June Foray Award, and she's probably one of the single most principal individuals of that organization. There's also her involvement with Television Academy, Academy of Arts, the Animation Guild, and of course, she is the principal voice of pretty much every animated witch. Chuck Jones even admits in his autobiography, Chuck Redux, that the incredibly talented June Foray did 3 different voices for 3 different Witch Hazels. One for Disney, one for MGM, and one for them. And he even admits national consciousness endorses ours as the best. Similar to her granny voice, June Foray had no idea there was another Witch Hazel. So she created her own voice. And in interviews later on, she makes it sound like this was her first voice at Warner Brothers, which may not have been true, but also it's hard to know. Witch Hazel was a very common name in cartoon. There's a character in Giggle Comics, which was a comic book ACG produced, that had a character named Witch Hazel. There was a character in the Spirit comics by Will Eisner that had a character named Witch Hazel. Of course, there was a character in the Little comics with a character named Witch Hazel. The character name wasn't really new, wasn't really original to comics, and it wouldn't be. Some of these characters would appear later or before, and there might be more named Witch Hazel I'm not even thinking of. And that's all I have to say.
Some have even made the case that that Magic Mirror character kind of looks like Mel Blanc. I could see the resemblance. I don't think it was just an out-and-out Mel Blanc caricature. It's close, but no, I don't think it was him, though.
Oddly enough, I did some quick researching of Mel Blanc, and at least later on in his life when he was getting older, I can actually see a tiny resemblance between him and the Magic Mirror character, but I think that just might be coincidence at the same time.
A friend of mine brought this up in a short little review that they think that the character of the Magic Mirror kind of looks like an outdated caricature of an Arabian person.
I think that's all it is. It's just an outdated caricature and nothing nothing really more. Anyway, well, that's up for speculation. But since Foray herself has pointed out that her caricature looks like her, well, I dare say that could be confirmed, right?
Yeah.
But there's all other references all throughout the short, but as we go through them, I will point them out. Because I've seen this one a ton of times. I'm sure many of you watching this have seen this a ton of times, so we'll just get right into it. Starting with this certificate that we see once we enter into Witch Hazel's home, and she has a membership in the Malevolent Order of Witches, and it says the A.F of Elves, and that is a parody of the AF of AL, which is the American Federation of Labor. And I know the name has changed later on, which is now AFL-CIO or something like that, but that's what that's a parody of in any case. We see Witch Hazel, she's brewing up a magic potion of some kind, and she's singing a variant of A Cup of Coffee, a Sandwich, and You.
A cup of arsenic, a spider, some glue, a lizard's gizzard, an eel's heel or two.
Pavashnik, some spider, some glue, a lizard's gizzard, and eels or two.
Did I get it right?
Kind of, yes. But yeah, it's been a staple in the Warner Brothers repertoire, if you will. The song's been around since 1925, and every time you see a cup of coffee or having tea or whatever, they will usually play that in the background, so it's pretty much a staple here. But I was looking at that menu, and I had no idea what a demijohn was. I was thinking, what on earth is a demijohn? And now I found out it's a rigid container, and it contains between 4 to 60 liters or 1 to 16 gallons for you guys in America, so, you know, it's just a jar, basically, so... yeah, why a demijohn? Don't ask me.
I've never even heard of them before.
But guys, were you like me when you originally saw this short and you didn't see the title cards that you thought this was Maurice Noble? I thought it was Maurice Noble, like, yeah, then he came back to the studio. But no, it's Nordli.
Funny enough, before I really delved into my research, I didn't realize that, like, obviously, when you're a little kid, you don't exactly know who the people behind these cartoons are, at least aside from the directors, the voice actors or stuff. But watching this cartoon, like, if you didn't tell me that Ernie Nordli worked on this and not Maurice Noble, I wouldn't have even thought otherwise. Looks pretty similar to his style, which, all things considered, and Luke, I know you have a lot more to say about Ernie Nordli, but I actually think he was a fairly underrated artist. I've talked about him a few times before, but he was actually fairly decent at mimicking Chuck Jones's art style around at this time, with some slight differences, of course, but his work, I think, blended in pretty well. And all things considered, if anyone wants to see like a really solid Halloween-esque background art direction in these Warner Brothers cartoons around the time, look no further than this cartoon.
I dare say Jones probably asked Nordli to do it similar to Maurice Noble.
When I first saw this cartoon a few years ago, I wasn't paying attention to the credits at all and just assumed Maurice Noble. And then it wasn't until recently, when I watched for this commentary specifically, that I saw Ernie Nordli's name on the credits, and I was like, wait, that was him? And I looked at it and I was like, oh my god, he nailed Maurice Noble's style down seamlessly in this short. I think it's one of his best works in that one. And as for Ernie himself, he actually has quite an interesting history where he joined Disney in the late 30s and became an art director and layout artist on Dumbo and Fantasia, and worked on several of the Donald Duck shorts and layout and backgrounds. And then later on had a short stint at Chuck Jones's department. He was originally going to do the backgrounds for What's Opera Doc before Maurice Noble came back. After that, he went back to Disney, and you can definitely feel that his stint at Chuck Jones definitely influenced him quite a bit when he went back to Disney, because he went over there and worked on Sleeping Beauty and 101 Dalmatians as a layout stylist, and he definitely had a bit of an influence in how the background style in Dalmatians work as well. I actually remember seeing his name on the 1957 Disney short, The Story of Anytown, USA.
That one I gotta watch at some point.
I like that one. Got the voice of Captain Hook as the lead lawyer in that one. It was actually quite a fun one.
Hans Connery? That's lost?
Yeah, it's got him. So there you are. So just a little thing. Well, I watched that one quite often as a kid too, but she's going about her business and she's asking who is the ugliest one of all. And of course, they're just playing up on the Snow White thing, I guess, at this point. And why not?
Magic mirror on the wall. Who is the ugliest one of all?
By my troth, I will avow, there's none that's uglier than thou.
Ted Pierce, the writer of this short, again, it's not even Mark Maltese. You got Ted Pierce as the writer for this one, which, again, surprised me. I thought it was Mark Maltese, but no, it's Ted Pierce. He's having a lot of fun with this one.
Oh, absolutely. Around this time, Jones was, I guess, trying to get back Mike Maltese, so he had to settle with Ted Pierce. Ted Pierce was still making some pretty solid stuff around this time, and none are more obvious than his very solid bits of one-liners and dialogues.
I'm so deathly afraid of getting pretty as I grow older. Pretty?
I just love those line deliveries.
Yeah.
And fantastic.
Yeah, at first it seems like a simple joke about not wanting to be pretty, but if you get to the ending of the cartoon, you'll definitely see why.
We cut to Bugs Bunny's trick-or-treating. I like that design of that hideous mask of his. Why is he trick-or-treating by himself? Who knows? I guess budgetary reasons force his friends to stay at home, I guess.
He's an adult. He can do what he wants.
Hey, don't act like any of you out there haven't still trick-or-treating in your 20s and 30s. Come on, you know who you are.
Boy, this trick-or-treating is a pretty nice racket. Pity it only comes once a year.
The shot of Bugs Bunny going like, boy, this trick-or-treating's a pretty nice racket. Pity it only comes once a year when we're introduced to Bugs. That scene is animated by Richard Thompson.
If memory serves correct, he stuck to Chuck Jones's art style fairly well, but he tended to add fairly expressive eyes and very broad facial expressions. There's one scene in Feline Frame Up when Mark Anthony flicks Claude on the nose and his owner immediately punches him in the face. That's the kind of stuff that Thompson would excel at. I don't think there's too many scenes in here that I can identify being done by Richard Thompson, but if you look at his style here, you'll notice it immediately, especially in how Bugs's eyes and mouth twitches a little bit as he talks. That's the kind of stuff that Chuck's later animators would excel at.
This whole short just has basically 3 animated characters, really. You just got Bugs, you got the Witch, both Witch and Pretty, and the Genie. That's it.
Well, there's a very brief shot of Witch Hazel's cat, but that's like one drawing and like a few frames of its feet walking by.
And I love that cat. It's great design. Bugs knocks on Witch Hazel's door and mistakes him for an actual witch. I mean, that's some costume, right? And she says that wonderful line.
Evening, Granny. Do you have any goodies for a Halloween witch?
Witch? I don't remember seeing her at any of the union meetings.
Ted Pierce was on fire when he wrote this one.
Around this time, almost every animation studio was unionized, so I'm sure that might have been a broad reference because unions were really taken up around this time period, or later unions, I should say. But it does make you wonder, in fairness, if there really is a witch union, then does that mean like all cartoon witches are a part of a witches guild or something? But it's a joke. You don't have to take it too seriously.
I like the fact that this magic mirror, who clearly isn't particularly a great magic mirror because you can't see that it's also a costume, and he says, "Thou wert the ugliest one, 'tis true, but that creep," I love the fact he calls him creep, "is uglier far than you."
Magic mirror on the wall. Who is the ugliest one of all?
Thou wert the ugliest one, 'tis true, but that creep is uglier far than you.
I love the wordplay here.
I love the quick second shot. After the magic mirror comes up, he quickly looks at Bugs, and Bugs in the witch mask looks over. That's such a funny detail, like someone waiting by a door and they're wondering, what's going on over there? It's just a cute little image.
When she yells out, "Darling,"
Darling!
that sounds like the voice that June Foray would use as Natasha in the Rocky and Bullwinkle show.
Any fairly deep voice that June Foray would do, it would kind of sound like Natasha, but it would especially sound like her if she did the Eastern European accent or any kind of accent.
It's a nice delivery. It just reminded me of that. I like that shot is when they're actually at the table. Witch Hazel is having a chat with this other witch, as she seems to think it is. This background, again, I honestly thought this was noble.
I warn you, dearie. I'm going to worm all of your ugly secrets out of you. Tell me now, who undoes your hair?
Do you like it?
Like it? Why, it's absolutely hideous!
I did myself up tonight.
I love the sequence at the dinner table very much. It's very well animated. This sequence of Witch Hazel talking to Bugs as the witch, I believe some of that acting definitely animated by Ben Washam. You can see it in the timing and even in the poses as well.
There's nothing like a home permanent. Oh, but I mustn't be such a selfish hostess. Wait right here and I'll stir up some tea and goodies. Make yourself homely.
We hear what's probably my favorite line in this whole short.
She may not be very pretty now, but she was somebody's baby once.
That line killed me. The delivery as well by Mel Blanc probably just thinks that she's just this old lady as well. She goes that she's going to now make some tea, and I like all those products that we see, those beauty enhancers. I wonder what's in those beauty enhancers. What products were made? These are the things that keep me up at night, of course. But the tea's brought back. Witch Hazel's eager for Bugs to drink the tea, and Bugs realizes, oh wait, I gotta take this mask off. Witch Hazel realizes, wait a minute, I'm missing an ingredient, and sure enough, it's a rabbit's clavicle. How convenient.
It's a special brew of my own. I think you'll like it. Come on, drink it.
Oh, I'm sorry, I forgot. I'll have to take off me mask first.
Mask?
There, that's better.
Yeah. Could have fooled you, huh?
Bugs suspects that there is something rather suspicious here. Again, I don't think he realizes that she's a witch. And he says,
You know, my delicate inner sense of danger warns me that there's something faintly unhealthy in the atmosphere of this cottage.
it's one way to keep the story going, too. It's great. But look at the posing when he's stopped at the door by Witch Hazel as she has that meat cleaver. That's great.
I love that pose. That is very clearly a Chuck Jones layout that whoever animated the scene just plussed.
And of course, Bugs ends up fleeing and says, pardon me, Auntie, but I've got a lot of trick-or-treating to catch up on, so I'll bid you a civil adieu. And, goes. And that foot animation, just look at the foot. That's the only thing that's animated very briefly.
And then afterwards, we get this whole chase sequence with really one of the coolest staircases I've ever seen in a cartoon. Like, look at that layout.
Oh, that's a phenomenal layout. I don't know how they would have planned that back then, but man, that is very well directed staging.
Yeah, in the next shot of the stairs, on the top part of the background, you see a completely black part, and it makes it seem like, oh, this stair path is really long.
She's got that massive, massive house.
Maybe it's Alice in Wonderland philosophy.
So she ends up going to her magic broom closet. And I like this gag here. She actually goes, crazy me, that was my sweeping broom.
Crazy me. That was my sweeping broom.
And she ends up shouting, Hi-Oh Fliver, and that's a parody of the Lone Ranger saying, Hi-Oh Silver, so there is that. And the Fliver, it's like an old car or an aircraft, it's just another slang term for it. So in case anyone was wondering what a Fliver was. Cool, huh?
Very solid work.
There we go. Yeah, so I'll research everything, as far as I can anyway. Bugs hiding, saying that old bag means to do me serious hurt. You think the cleaver didn't give you a hint? But he ends up being deceived by that wonderful fishing rod gag with the carrot
this
at the end.
bit was reused in Rabbit Romeo, released a year later, directed by Robert McKimson. Like, it's almost exact same timing.
Although a different scenario. Like, Witch Hazel is trying to catch Bugs to kill him. Elmer Fudd was catching Bugs so he could be a companion for the other rabbit.
When Witch Hazel puts Bugs on the net, the funny thing about that shot is that all of a sudden, Bugs' whole body starts to become really wobbly for some reason.
Bugs is pretty much held captive, and it's like capturing a fish.
We see that Hazel is preparing now to obviously kill Bugs and do what she needs to do with him to split a hair.
Yeah, that's sharp enough to split a hair. Split a hair.
But we get this wonderful shot. I wonder who drew this. You guys probably know the answer. Of Bugs just looking sad. And you hear that beautiful violin, so sappy.
It's very, so hysterically saccharine, like a dog doing the whole puppy eye thing. And also, I'm 100% confident that that whole scene is a Chuck Jones layout that they just cleaned up, to be honest.
Oh, I wouldn't be surprised either. There's even bits of Witch Hazel looking static with, very little animation. I forget who it was who said this, but one animator at Warner Brothers said that Chuck Jones's layouts were so airtight that animating the layouts was basically just in-tweeting everything. I think that's super accurate here. They just feel like layouts that were cleaned up, and it's perfect.
It works really well. Just you can hear the saccharine music and just those doe eyes. Chef's kiss to that shot, and not even really animated, it's just a pose. Chuck knows how to do so much with so little. It's great.
What's the matter, dearie?
Now, I will admit, this joke here, it's funny, but I don't entirely get it. When Witch Hazel says that Bugs reminds her of Paul, who happens to be her pet tarantula, so does that mean that Paul was like her favorite pet? Was Paul accidentally killed? Did Paul accidentally fall into the witch's brew? What was Paul's deal about?
What's the matter, dearie?
You remind me of Paul.
Paul?
My pet tarantula.
Again, it's a joke, but it does leave you wondering.
It's the stuff that keeps me up at night. I think it's just one of those little throwaway things where instead of having a pet dog or pet cat or whatever, in her case, she's a witch, so it has to be a pet tarantula or a snake or something. I think it's just a throwaway thing and nothing more, but we get to the bit where she drinks the tea, which, as we've set up earlier, is the beauty elixir, and she ends up turning into this very attractive woman. Of course, what do we hear in the background, boys? Say it with me.
Oh, I don't know. Is it a certain song that goes, "Oh, you beautiful doll, da 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 da"?
Franklin doesn't do as many musical puns, but the few that he does, it's perfect.
I almost forgot to bring up Mill Franklin's score in this one is really good.
It just fits the Halloween atmosphere perfectly. So hearing "Beautiful Doll" is a hilarious contrast.
Yeah. So she goes to the mirror, and I like how June Frey's voice has changed. It's closer to her regular voice at the time, and she asks meekly to the mirror, is she still ugly? And the genie's like, well, he does the whole rah thing, and I'm just playing up the whole, hey, attractive woman. And the mirror had that dour face the entire short, and then all of a sudden now it's like, oh, well, you're attractive. Hey, I'm going to go after you, which I know some people, I know you boys are going to mention this. I think that it's not a great ending in certain ways, but if you watch it in the context of when it came out and what was actually happening, I think it ends fine. I certainly think it's better than Bewitched Bunny.
It kind of has a similar problem to how Bewitched Bunny has a similarly outdated ending, but with that, you could at least cut the line. With the ending of this one, they just go for it.
I don't entirely know how they could have done the ending differently, but in fairness, it does sort of tie into the opening joke of how Witch Hazel is always afraid of getting pretty as she grows older, which, you know, is a funny little reversal of like,
oh, I'm so afraid of getting old and wrinkly as I grow older.
obviously. But at the time, I'm sure it got a lot of laughs, but nowadays it's just yikes.
It's a product of its time, and I think it is a better ending than the really cringy one in Bewitched Bunny. It's just irony. That's all it really is.
Bugs' final line at the end is kind of funny. The whole genie with light brown hair chasing a flying sorceress. Not gonna lie, I kind of want to see that in a different context.
Just so everyone's aware, because people may not be aware, he mentions a genie with light brown hair, and that's a play on the song I Dream of Genie with the Light Brown Hair. So that's a play on that. I like how the genie looks so different from when he's got the dour face in the mirror, but when he's chasing after her, he's got that massive smile on the side of his face. I'm just trying to think who would have drawn that.
Him showing a bit of the teeth when he sees the pretty witch, it almost looks like a pear-shaped Grinch head with these cheeks specifically, but not as furry.
It kind of does.
So it's quite clear that two different animators worked on that character. It just looks so different.
This is a perfect cartoon in the Looney Tunes canon to watch during the Halloween season. It's spooky, it's corny, it's funny, and even a little bit of a tearjerker at times. So I can't recommend this enough. Is it the absolute best pairing between Bugs and Witch Hazel? I'm not entirely sure. There's at least one more we got to get to really say for sure, but it's definitely one worth watching. And definitely Bewitched Bunny, so give it a go, folks. Shameless plug for Halloween aside, it's my favorite time of year. I don't care.
You know, Eli, I also love Halloween because that specific holiday is a few days after my birthday, which is coming up soon. As for the cartoon itself, I give it an 8 out of 10.
Same here.
The ending itself, yeah, it is like outdated, but like as Anthony said, you could probably take it or leave it. But the whole cartoon has this perfect Halloween atmosphere. It is a gorgeous looking cartoon that just gets you in the Halloween mood. Kind of like It's a Great Pumpkin, Charlie Brown, in a sense. Like those just perfectly captured the mood of Halloween very well. And the whole cartoon also has some great gags and animation too. It's a great Halloween cartoon. It's an 8 out of 10.
It definitely is one of the more perfect ones. And, you know, this one gets 9.5 out of 10. It is great.
I'm going to be biased and give it somewhere in between an 8 and a 9 out of 10. I probably enjoy Bewitched Bunny a bit more. I think this one is actually a superior cartoon in terms of Bugs and Witch Hazel's interactions. Again, feel free to disagree.
That will do it for this one. Thank you so much for watching, guys. And until next time, take care.
Hello, Air Raid Headquarters? Well, you're not gonna believe this, but I just saw a genie with light brown hair chasing a flying sorceress.